Today's show brought to you by redcon1.com. That's right. Click the link at the bottom of the podcast app in which you are listening to this on. Check them out. Use promo code T20 Quartermiss. That's right. redcon1.com.
There's nothing special about being American. None of you can define for me what an American is.
I am the nation. I was born on July 4th, 1776, and the Declaration of Independence is my birth certificate. The bloodlines of the world run in my veins because I offered freedom to the oppressed. I am many things and many people. I am the nation. I am 200 million living souls and the ghost of millions who have lived and died for me. I am Nathan Hale and Paul Revere. I stood at Lexington and fired the shot heard round the world. I'm Washington, Jefferson, Patrick Henry. I'm John Paul Jones, the Green Mountain Boys, Davy Crockett. Lee.
Coming to you from the DTOM Studios in the free state of Florida, sponsored by Maker's Mark Bourbon, this is Don't Tread on Merica. Alrighty, how's everybody doing out there today? It is Sunday, March 8th, 2026. Currently, I'm on vacation. I'm traveling to Kentucky to visit my daughter and grandchildren, her husband and grandchildren. And so I'm on the road. But if you're watching this on Rumble, on DontTreadonMericaTV, you can see that I'm not on the road. Because through the invention of technology, and I finally tried to figure this shit out, I can schedule these shows. So we're recording these in advance. You're welcome. I'm trying to stay on track. I'm going to give you 2 shows this week, Sunday, Thursday, and next week, Sunday, Thursday, while I'm not here. Now, I will pre-warn you, today's show is piggybacking off the show I did on Thursday. The shows moving forward are going to be more conspiratorial, I don't know, that word, that do encompass events that are happening today. So they'll be interesting social. Please follow the show on social media. Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and TikTok. And of course, on the Twitter X machine, DTOM Podcast 1776. And like I said, Rumble, Don't Tread on America TV. Also, guys, check out the DTOM Store. All proceeds go to Tunnels and Towers. And if you're not on social media, that's fine. You can go to the website, DontTreadonMerica.com. You can watch all the videos from there. And also, if you have any questions, concerns, or ideas, anything you want to talk to me about, anything I might have missed, you can email me, DonQ at DontTreadonMerica.com. And we're still going to kick it off like we always do. Damn Yankees, don't tread on me. Crank it up, rip the knob off. Traffic's backed up on the 101. No? It's my DJ voice. What do you think, huh? All right, guys. Got a good show today. Like I said, we're going to piggyback off the show I did Thursday. We're still talking about Israel and Iran. So I want you to be prepared for what we're going to talk about today. Does Israel have nuclear weapons? We'll discuss in just a minute. Let's go.
Don't you dare
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Don't Tread on America. Of course, I am your host, Don Q, coming to you from the heart of freedom-loving America. Today, we're diving deep, real deep, into one of the most explosive topics out there, pun intended: Israel's nuclear arsenal. The wild rumors of them strong-arming Trump into bombing Iran, and all the conspiracy theories swirling around it like fallout from a dirty bomb. We're talking about some deep stuff, guys, so I need you guys to grab your coffee, get you a snack, buckle up, because we're not holding back. If you're watching this on Rumble, you can see I'm not drinking whiskey, I'm drinking a Mountain Dew. Because as I'm recording this, it's early in the morning, and I need energy because I have to record 4 shows today. Buckle up, guys. We're not holding back. No lectures, no moralizations, no moralizing, just facts, theories, and the raw truth as I see it. This episode is inspired by some wild street talk I've been hearing. Did Israel really whisper nuclear threats in Trump's ear to force a war with Iran? Is Netanyahu the real existential threat? And what's up with all these shadowy nukes Israel won't admit even having? We'll break it down, play some eye-opening audio clips, and cite real articles to back it up. Remember, unverified doesn't mean untrue. We're exploring all angles. We'll kick it off with the basics after our guitar solo like we always do. Hang tight. All right. First things first. Does Israel have nukes? Hell yeah, they do. Estimates put their arsenal at 80 to 400 warheads, guys. They've got the bombs, the missiles, even subs to launch them from. But they play this game of nuclear opacity. Never confirm, never deny. It's like Schrodinger's bomb. It exists, and it doesn't until someone peeks in the box. How do they get there? Well, it all starts in the 1950s with French help at the Dimona reactor. Declassified docs show Israel straight up lied to the U.S. about being peaceful. Eisenhower, JFK, LBJ all got the rundown. Ben-Gurion, who was the prime minister at the time, told him it was for textiles or some BS. And get this, they allegedly stole enriched uranium from a U.S. plant in Pennsylvania. Hundreds of pounds gone missing, fingered on Mossad. Excuse me. That's not theory. CIA suspected it back in the day. Let me play this clip. This is from Tucker Carlson's show, so we're going to listen to it.
Can I ask you about President Kennedy's efforts to...
it's very interesting. Listen to what this lady says.
To prevent nuclear war. One of the things he did, it's been written about to some extent, is try to prevent David Ben-Gurion, then Prime Minister of Israel, from developing a nuclear weapon at the Dimona site. I think we have a lot of correspondence now that shows the president demanding inspections of the Dimona site. Ben-Gurion resigned as prime minister, I think, as a result of this controversy. What happened there?
Yeah, I think Israel was really avoiding any sort of oversight by the President Kennedy. Thought that proliferation of nuclear weapons was incredibly dangerous. He was definitely concerned and didn't want other countries acquiring nuclear weapons. This eventually led, even after his death, to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, whose goal was that, but there are other goals, and I can talk about them as well. In the case of Israel, he felt very strongly that if this was our ally, we were going to tell the rest of the world not to acquire nuclear weapons, we also had to actually, do what we were preaching and sort of be consistent in our approach to Israeli nuclear weapons. But they went ahead and, I think it's thought that the first functional Israeli nuclear weapon was developed in 1966. And so this was actually, interestingly, before the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty came together. It was negotiated over a long period of time, but finally kind of signed in 1968, and then it entered into force in 1970. It's still currently one of the largest international agreements amongst states in the United Nations.
How many nuclear armed states have signed it?
So that treaty, it recognizes 5 nuclear weapon states. They're U.S., Russia, United Kingdom, France, and China. Those are the 5 that had nuclear weapons up to that point, declared nuclear weapons arsenals. Again, Israel had actually begun its program. At this point, Israel is thought to have 90 nuclear warheads. The other 5, what's interesting is they were, from the very beginning of the treaty, all 5 were recognized as nuclear weapon states. But China and France didn't join the treaty until 1992. So it sometimes takes time for these treaties to actually.
So the other nations would be India, Pakistan, North Korea.
So there are 4 others. So 9 nuclear armed states, 5 recognized by the United Nations. Also, all 5 members of the UN Security Council with veto power. And then the 4 that are outside of the treaty, Israel, which has this unique policy of ambiguity of an undeclared nuclear arsenal. But again, we think it's a 90 nuclear warhead arsenal.
And we're pretty sure that there is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think there's no doubt about whether or not they have them.
So, get back to my music. I can't talk in silence. It drives me crazy. So, Israel tested one in 1979 with South Africa. Double flash in the Indian Ocean caught by U.S. satellites. No admission. Get that out the way. Go back to you. Blah, blah, blah. No admission, just more obscurity. And whistleblower Mordechai Vanunu kidnapped by Mossad in 1986 for spilling the beans. Vanunu's kidnapping and Israel's denials. Israel denies it possesses nuclear weapons, but observers believe there's strong evidence to the contrary. Let me play this also.
They say it's the one country that we all know has nuclear weapons, but still steadfastly refuses to acknowledge it.
While Israel denies it possesses nuclear weapons, observers believe there's strong evidence to the contrary.
The recent war that broke out between Israel and Iran was based on the agreement among most countries that the Islamic Republic of Iran can't be allowed to have nuclear weapons. That agreement underpins most of the extremely complex political situation in the Middle East right now. But the question that logically follows is, why does Israel get to have them? Of course, Israel's response is, we don't, along with this promise.
Israel undertook upon herself not to be the first country to introduce atomic weapons in the Middle East.
We won't be the first to introduce nuclear weapons into the Middle East.
In this episode, we're telling truly one of the most extraordinary stories we've ever told on this show. The story of how Israel got its nuclear weapons, how we found out about them, and why the global community seems to be fine with the whole thing. It's a story of espionage, kidnapping, a secret bunker, and the ramifications of keeping too many secrets. I'm Matt Bevan.
So, this sets the stage for why folks like this show get conspiratorial. Secrecy breeds suspicion. And we'll get to that here in just a minute after our first commercial break. So hang tight, guys. All right, guys, you know when you're grinding through these long episodes like I am, you need something to keep you sharp without the hassle. That's where Alp nicotine pouches come in. Discreet, smoke-free, and packed with a clean nicotine kick. Go to outpouch.com/DTOM and you'll get 20% off your first order, guys. That's outpouch.com/DTOM. Stay frosty, folks. We'll be back in just a moment here. All right, guys. Let's get back to it. Now, let's get into the juicy stuff. The conspiracies. Now, I'm not saying that I buy all of them, but they are out there, backed by some intriguing sources. So first up, the Samson option. This isn't just deterrence, it's Israel's alleged plan to nuke everyone if they're going down, like Samson pulling the temple on his enemies. Seymour Hersh's book lays it out. Massive retaliation, even against non-attackers. Some theories amp it up. Israel threatening Europe or the U.S. if aid stops. Exaggerated, maybe, but Hersh cites Israeli leaders coining it back in the 60s. This is the difficult thing about doing this show solo. Play.
The Samson option.
The Samson option refers to Israel's unofficial doctrine of massive nuclear retaliation in the event of existential threat to the state. The term draws from the biblical story of Samson, who destroyed the Philistine temple, killing himself and his enemies in the final act of vengeance. In strategic terms, it implies that if Israel faces annihilation, it will unleash its nuclear arsenal onto its enemies, even at the cost of self-destruction.
Though Israel has never officially confirmed possessing nuclear weapons, it maintains a policy of Mimut, Hebrew for deliberate ambiguity. Foreign analysts estimate Israel holds between 80 to 400 nuclear warheads, deliverable by Jericho missiles, F-15, F-35 aircraft, and Dolphin-class submarines. The whole idea is to deter enemies by saying, if we go down, we're taking you with us. Israel's nuclear journey began in the 1950s, driven by the trauma of Holocaust and the belief that state survival required ultimate deterrence. Under Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, Israel, with covert assistance from France and Norway, built the Dimona nuclear facility in Negev Desert. By 1967 Six-Day War, Israel is believed to have assembled its first nuclear weapon. The doctrine of Samson option gained public attention through Seymour Hersh's 1991 book with the same name, and the 1986 revelations of Mordechai Vanunu, a former technician at Dimona, who leaked photos and technical data to the British press. Over the decades, Israeli leaders like Moshe Dayan, Ariel Sharon, and Shimon Peres have hinted at the existence of such a doctrine, reinforcing its role as a last resort deterrent. The ongoing war with Iran has raised fresh concerns that Israel might use the Samson option, its nuclear backup plan, if pushed to the edge. Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear and military sites have triggered heavy missile retaliation, some even hitting civilian areas. At the same time, Hezbollah is active in the north and Houthis are posing threat in the Red Sea, putting Israel in danger of fighting on multiple fronts at once. If Iran were to launch a massive casualty strike, especially one involving chemical or radiological weapons, analysts warn that Israel could invoke the Samson option. The IDF has already claimed air superiority over Tehran, and Israeli officials have not ruled out targeting Iran's supreme leader. If Israel were to activate the Samson option, the consequences would be catastrophic. Loss of life and infrastructure. A nuclear exchange could result in hundreds of thousands of deaths across Iran and neighboring countries. Major cities like Tehran, Ifshan, and Mashhad could be obliterated. Fallout could affect Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and even parts of India and Central Asia. Environmental collapse. Nuclear strikes on Iran's reactor and enrichment sites could trigger radiological contamination across the region. The IAEA has already confirmed contamination at Natanz following conventional Israeli strikes. Global economic shock. Oil prices could skyrocket. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil passes, would likely be closed. Global markets would plunge and supply chains would be paralyzed. Geopolitical fallout. A nuclear strike would shatter the non-proliferation treaty framework. Other regional powers like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey might pursue nuclear weapons. Russia and China could intervene diplomatically or militarily. The US would face immense pressure to either jump into the war or against the move. Humanitarian crisis. Millions of refugees would flee Iran, overwhelming neighboring countries. International aid agencies would struggle to respond amid radiation zones and collapsed infrastructure.
As the Israel-Iran war escalates, the world must reckon the terrifying possibility that nuclear deterrence could turn into nuclear devastation. The doctrine's very existence is meant to prevent such a scenario. But in a region where ideology trumps over diplomacy, the line between devastation and deterrence grows dangerously thin.
So, we have a situation here, folks, that you recall Trump the other day saying that our involvement, I guess I should say, had to happen to possibly stop nuclear war. Now, we were led to believe that was the insinuation, I guess I should say, was that Iran would use nuclear weapons. But if the world, and by what I mean by the world is the population of the world, people like you and I, people in Europe, Middle East, Russia, China, wherever, Africa, are to believe that Israel has no nuclear weapons. That's what we're told. But I guarantee you that the world leaders, America, Russia, China, England, France, they all know that Israel has nuclear weapons. To the point of this, how do we know that Iran has nuclear weapons? Well, we know this via satellite, spies, what Israel is telling us. So if we are to believe that Iran has nuclear weapons, then why do we not believe, or why are we told to not believe that Israel doesn't have nuclear weapons? Everything is there. The proof is there. The video I played, obviously, I'm not technically sound enough to show you the video on Rumble, but shows satellite imagery of the the Dimona facility. So we know they exist. And when I say we, I'm talking about the U.S. government, the CIA, our military industrial complex, knows this exists. So could you possibly ask the question that our involvement was because of the Samson option? That maybe Netanyahu told Trump, Another question you have to ask is, with the back and forth between the U.S. and Israeli defense bombing the shit out of Iran, and Iran returning fire, so to speak, and by all accounts, regardless of what we're being told in the media and by Trump and other people in his cabinet, saying that Iran is depleting its arsenal, by all accounts, the fact is that the arsenal, quote unquote, that is being depleted, or I guess I should put the quote unquote on depleted, is old munitions, and that their newer stuff is yet to be released. Last night, it was reported, I saw this morning, that Iran is launching cluster bombs, which is illegal in world diplomacy of war, or whatever, the rules of war. I guess cluster bombs are illegal. However, we have seen Russia use them in Crimea, allegedly. I think you have to ask the question with these countries, Ukraine, Israel, is it beyond them to possibly bomb their own people to push the narrative? Now, I'm not saying that Iran didn't launch cluster bombs into Tel Aviv. I don't my personal belief is, yes, there are rules to war. But also, if you get into a fight, if you personally get into a fight with somebody, is there any rules? It's about self-defense, right? But with the Samson option out there, who's to say that Israel doesn't launch, maybe not on their own people, initially, maybe not on their own people, but who's to say they don't bomb a neighboring country with a nuclear weapon, then blame it on Iran for the imposed annihilation of that country? Not that it's not being annihilated right now, but nuclear war would definitely annihilate it. Now, something interesting in Tucker's video was tied to JFK wanting to inspect the Demonia site in Israel. Now, a lot of things that we've talked about on this show and other shows have talked about as far as the assassination of JFK was tied to forcing Israel to the AIPAC, I guess I should say, is to sign as an foreign entity there, influencing American politics. And that was an interesting take. But what if this is the reason? What if JFK's assassination tied to the nukes? Kennedy pushed hard for the Demonia inspections and threatened to cut aid to Israel. Declassified memos show his pressure on then Prime Minister Ben-Gurion. And the theory is that Mossad or pro-Israel elements took him out. Now, obviously, we have no hard proof because it's not, quote-unquote, verified. But like I said earlier, unverified doesn't mean untrue. But timing is suspicious. And LBJ was more lenient post-assassination. So, there's a lot of stuff going on Twitter and on Reddit right now about this. And one of the posts is, the last president to say no to Israel was John F. Kennedy. And we all know how that ended for him. And that's important. Is there, and I know I'm jumping ahead here, and maybe I should wait because I think I have it written down here. But is there a possibility that these attempted assassinations on Trump were Israel missing Trump, like the Butler PA situation where he was shot in the ear? Initially, when that happened, there was a lot of speculation and podcasts, because he wasn't president yet, that this was Trump's people doing this to get him elected. And I never was on board with that, because I'm like, that's a dangerous game to play. You know? Now, what if it was Israel? Because if you recall, after the Ryan Routh situation in Florida, where he was found outside the the golf the golf course there, nothing had actually happened, but he was discovered and blah blah blah. You know the story. And shortly thereafter, a video emerged, supposedly from Iran, saying that these things that had happened to Trump over the past couple of months, back then, was their involvement. But you could possibly ask the question that, what if that was a fake video put out by Israel blaming Iran for these situations in the justification that is happening today? Right? Put that together with the possible thought that Netanyahu had a discussion with Trump, telling him that if you don't get involved and help us with this, we are going to unleash nuclear annihilation, not only to Iran, but the countries surrounding them. Because realistically, as much as we are told by the mainstream media and our politicians that Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East, I don't know that that's true. I think that deep down inside, in conversations that we don't hear, I don't want to pose it like we, the United States of America and our military, is afraid of Israel. But we're worried about what they might do, not to us, but to the areas, the countries surrounding Israel, where probably some of our better allies, Saudi, Qatar, these other countries who don't necessarily have a strong military presence, those are probably greater allies to us from a financial situation. What I mean by that is oil, obviously. Now, in that video I played earlier, they said that if this were to happen, 20% of the oil comes from Iran. Now, you could also combine that with, maybe that's the whole reason, part of the reason the United States did what they did in Venezuela, to capture that country's oil production. That's actually being played out in the mainstream media. Now, the United States, doesn't obtain oil from Iran. The key is that area, the Red Sea, and the I can't think of what it's called, but the pass there through between Qatar and Iran is being blocked right now, and which is causing a blockade or a holdup of oil tankers coming and going from that area. I think that my thought process is, and this is where I'll probably get in trouble, is that Benjamin Netanyahu is the problem here. He was prime minister, then he wasn't, and now he is again. The time and period that he wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot going on in the Middle East. And now he's back, and we're back at it. We also have the 9/11 theories. One of them is that Mossad orchestrated it to drag the U.S. into Middle East wars. You heard about the dancing Israelis arrested filming the towers, claiming to be Mossad agents celebrating. Now, that's a wild claim. Israel used nukes on the towers. That's a wild claim. I don't think that's the case. Because, and the ADL calls it anti-Semitic, of course, but it's persistent. Now, there's also this concern, is that, I'm going to play this video too, is that possibly, wait, is this the one I want to play? Hold on. is this one here.
There's absolutely no concern whatsoever in the military that Pakistan can become the next target. Absolutely no concern. It's because there's a sea of difference between these two countries and Pakistan. We are an established and declared nuclear power. And the world has no experience of going to or even attempting to go into a misadventure against an established nuclear power. And if such a misadventure is taken or attempted to, then it will lead to horrific consequences which the world may not be able to endure.
So that was a Pakistani general who, and like I was going to say, by all accounts, one of the theories out there is that Israel could strike Pakistan, blaming it on Iran, which would draw Pakistan into it, which would draw Russia and China even deeper into this situation. But Israel is sparking fake nuke threats, like the 2016 Palestinian-Israel tweet storm over bogus articles, or pushing the Iraqi WMD lies via Netanyahu in the 2000s. And it's interesting, that was the last time he was Prime Minister of Israel. And one of the questions I asked, I did a show on 9/11, and this was a couple years ago. But when 9/11 happened, we were told that it was Osama bin Laden. He was in Afghanistan. He was from Saudi. He was all these things, and he was in Afghanistan, or was he in Pakistan? He was Saudi Arabian national, blah 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 blah. And then one of the questions I had was, okay, in 2001, when 9/11 happened, we were led to believe we knew who did this. And 2 years later, we went into Iraq. And we talked about this before. Remember the whole, we got to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here thing from George Bush. And the WMD thing was bullshit. We never found anything. That was all bullshit. The whole point of that was to take out Saddam Hussein. Kind of like what's going on in Iran right now. The whole point is to take out, and allegedly we successfully did so, took out the Ayatollah. The problem with that is, once again, Netanyahu is in the middle of this. And we talked about this the other day on the show. The war with Iran, the whole point to all this is to rebuild the Third Temple and destroy Al-Aqsa. So, if these theories are true, we have to understand who is the real threat here. Now, the words I'm saying are not anti-Semitic, because it has nothing to do with the Jewish people or the Jewish religion, for that matter. It's about one person. That's who we, and what I mean by we, I'm talking about the global population of this world, has the problem with. And do you honestly think that Israel, or I should say Benjamin Netanyahu, gives two fucks about the people of his country because they don't like him? The people that live in Israel, the Jewish population, the regular, average, everyday citizens that live in Israel, understand what is actually going on here. This, in my opinion, is a push for one man to take over the Middle East. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump. Having uncovered all this stuff about the Samson option, it is in my belief that Trump is actually trying to prevent that from happening. Now, realistically, if that were true, why wouldn't we just, quote unquote, take out Netanyahu? Now, I'm not saying that we need to go kill him. I'm not saying that. But it is something that we have to look at. Who or what the existential threat actually is. Is it Iran? Or is it Netanyahu? There are some scuttlebutt on Twitter claiming Israel nuked the U.S. on 9/11. I don't know that that could necessarily be true. I feel like that if that even was a thought, that there would have been no hiding it if a nuclear bomb went off in the United States. I'm not saying that Israel wasn't involved in 9/11. I'm saying that I don't believe nukes were. And that I do believe that there is a threat out there of the Samson option. And I do believe that is what pulled us into this. Now, other people that hate Donald Trump, will sit here and tell you it was because of the Epstein thing. I don't know that it is or that it isn't. This actually makes more sense to me than that. Because I've said this before, ever since this whole Epstein shit started, that if there was actually proof that Trump had done something wrong, we would have known about it 4, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1, however many years ago. I've said this before, that if there was actual proof that Trump did stuff wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe he did, I don't know, but I'm just saying this: if there was proof that he did something wrong when he was running for president, and they were throwing all that other bullshit at him to get him to not be able to run or stop him from running, why wouldn't they, whoever they is, why wouldn't they have released that? Now, some people will tell you, well, if the Democrats released that, then it would have exposed Democrats. And that's probably true. Or they could have done what the DOJ is doing right now and fucking blacked out the shit that involved any of their people. Or just put out the stuff that exposes Trump. So we know that there's millions of fucking files on this Epstein shit, and we've only seen a fraction of them. And that leads to a lot of more conspiracies that Trump is involved in, his DOJ is covering it up, and blah, blah, blah. But if you want to believe that theory, then you could also believe the theory that if there was stuff in there of Trump, it could have been released under Biden's DOJ, blocking out anything that their people were involved in. You understand what I'm saying here? The hypocrisy on all of this, as far as Iran is concerned, is that Israel actually has nukes. We know this. Actually, it's unverified, but like I said, unverified doesn't mean untrue. Israel does not allow inspections while bombing Iran over unproven programs. So the American public, and I would assume this is a world topic, is that we are to believe, and we are being told, that the reason the United States is involved in this is to stop Iran from using nuclear weapons, which we have no proof that they have these weapons. I'm not saying they don't. It's unverified, but doesn't mean that it's untrue, right? They probably do have. I mean, there's probably more countries that have nuclear weapons that we even realize, in all honesty. We know, I think the ones that talk about it, we know the United States, we know Russia. That started back in the 50s. We know China does. We know Pakistan. We know India. We know North Korea, because these guys admit to it. And I think the reason some of these countries like North Korea and Pakistan, I think, and possibly even India, the reason they say they do and probably allow inspections and to verify the fact that they do isn't because they want to flex on anybody and show world dominance. I think it's more of a protection for them, because you got to understand where where India and Pakistan are right on the border of China. You know, you got India here, Pakistan, China. So it makes sense to say that those are more deterrent-based nuclear arsenals from China versus, I'm India, we have nuclear bombs, so don't fuck with us, Europe, or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more a deterrent from China doing anything. That's my opinion. Iran doesn't admit to having nuclear weapons because they don't want what's going on. They didn't want what is going on now to actually happen. Unfortunately, here we are. The reason Israel doesn't admit it is because they want to look like the innocent victim in all this. And if you are telling the truth, Israel, why wouldn't you allow the inspections? We all know that you have them. So you have to ask the question like that gentleman earlier asked. If no one in the Middle East is allowed to have them, why does Israel? We'll talk more about it here in just a minute. Another commercial, guys. Hang tight. I know that's a lot to unpack, but in a world full of secrets and surveillance, protect yourself with NordVPN. Encrypt your connections, browse anonymously. Go to nordvpn.com, use promo code DTOM. That'll get you 30% off plus a free month. Don't let Big Brother watch your every move. We'll be back in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, so now the big rumor. We've talked about it. Did Israel tell Trump, bomb Iran or we'll nuke them? Now, this is obviously unverified, but whispers are everywhere. Strikes started February 28th. U.S. and Israel hitting nukes, missiles, proxies. Trump says it's to stop Iran's nukes reaching the U.S., but no imminent threat is evident. Netanyahu influenced it for regime change or possibly his elections or elections in Iran. And then the conspiracy we talked about is Israel behind Trump's assassination attempts to spark war or forcing U.S. because Israel was going away. Let me play this clip here. This is from ex-CIA agent John Kiriakou on what he believes.
The reason, though, I'm told, that Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran was that the Israelis said, for the first time, if you don't bomb Iran to take out these deep bunkers, we're going to use nuclear weapons. And they had never threatened that before. And so Trump said, bombing Iran might actually save us from the start of World War III if it keeps the Israelis from using nuclear weapons.
So according to your source, the Israelis told the President of the United States that if he did not use the United States military power to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran, Israel, acting on its own, would use nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Do you see why there's a problem with that statement, John?
Yeah.
Because they've never admitted that they've had them.
That's right.
So you're telling me that they just admitted to the President of the United States that they have nuclear weapons and we still do not have them in the IAEA treaty?
I mean, if Israeli nuclear whistleblowers are to be believed, yeah, they've had them. They started working on them in the 50s. They got them around the late 60s or the early 70s. Look at Mordechai Vanunu. Mm-hmm. You know, he wasn't charged for treason for nothing.
That's a guy they hid in Rome with the honeypot?
Yeah.
Yeah, 86.
So, I mean, there's a lot going on here, guys. And like they asked, like the I don't know what podcast he was on, but if that's true, what does that mean for Netanyahu and Israel moving forward? ICANN condemns as illegal from nuclear states. So if these statements are true and Israel admitted, or Benjamin Netanyahu admitted to this, stating that, then what happens when all this is over? Let's just assume. Well, actually, you know what? Let me get this last commercial out of the way, and then we'll finish this up. Okay, we're almost there, guys. Hang tight. All right, guys. After all this heavy stuff, you deserve a good night's sleep, and My Pillow's got you covered. Premium pillows, sheets, all American made. Use promo code DTOM for up to 50% off. Go to mypillow.com, promo code DTOM, guys. Sweet dreams. We'll be back in just a second. All right, so is Netanyahu the real danger here? Critics say yes. He's warmongering since Iraq. He has low polls. He has ICC warrants against him. The theories are that he's pushing war for power. Existential threat to world peace. Removal, possibly. Non-violent, of course. Elections, sanctions, aid cuts. If the ultimatum is true, will there be UN backlash, isolation, legal breaches? Conveniently enough, these ICC warrants against Netanyahu don't mean anything to him because they're not part of the ICC. They never signed that treaty, just like they never signed the non-nuclear proliferation treaty. It's interesting how we look at Israel as such this great force in the Middle East, but we allow them to work outside of these treaties. But we force other countries into these treaties. And then when, say, like the United States backs out of the Paris Accords, it's seen as a big fucking deal. But the world allows allows Israel to operate on its own accord. There's a lot of calls on Twitter to take him out, Netanyahu, peacefully. We're not calling for an assassination. We're not calling for the death of Netanyahu. We're calling for him to be removed from power. I believe it is my belief, and a lot of people, a lot of other podcasters, a lot of people on Twitter from this country and around the world understand that the threat is him. And we, the United States, are full of hypocrites when it comes to nukes. If Tel Aviv were to attack Tehran with nuclear weapons, then Pakistan could possibly retaliate. And that's where the problem lies, guys, because then, and only then, right now we're looking at a regional war that the U.S. isn't in the region, but is involved in. And the U.S. is actually feeling some of the bullshit behind this. And what I mean by that is we're having military bases in the Middle East bombed. If you look at some of the bombing targets outside of Israel, it's nothing but United States military bases in the countries surrounding Iraq, Saudi, Qatar, those areas surrounding Iran. And then you also have Lebanon getting involved in this. Why? I don't know. Israel is invoking the Samson option, just not to its full extent yet. You could even ask the question, is Iran bombing these military targets for the U.S. military? Or is it Israel to pull us deeper into this? If Pakistan gets involved in all this, you're talking the beginning of World War III. In the truest extent of what that means. And what this also could possibly mean is Russia getting involved. but not in the way you think they might get involved. And what I mean by that is if we're busy, if Israel is busy, if Europe gets pulled into this, England, France, Germany, if they get pulled into this, that opens the door for China and Russia to do what they want to do on their targets. China probably doesn't give too much of a fuck, although a lot of their oil comes out of Iran. They probably will focus their attention on Taiwan. We're busy. We don't have time with that. Russia could focus harder attention on the Ukraine, which nobody is even talking about. That is still going on. We're busy. We don't have time to mess with that. That's the implications here. So when we talk a world war, if you go back to the last one we had, now there's been plenty of wars since World War II that have involved the world, right? Iraq, Afghanistan, regional conflicts, Bosnia, so on and so forth. But none of those have been considered a world war. And fortunately for America, outside of Pearl Harbor, we've never seen that problem in our country. But could this start that? Now, we've covered the arsenal. We've covered the lies, the theories, from Samson to 9/11, JFK to the Temple talk we talked about on the show the other day. The Iran war, maybe the ultimatum, maybe shared threats. But remember, guys, question everything. And I'm going to stop this and start this. Maybe. Is it going to start? Netanyahu, pressure him out democratically. And that's where the question lies. And I talked about this on the show the other day. Could part of this be a reason because he knows if he allows elections in his country that he is not going to be the prime minister anymore? By being in the middle of a war, he can suspend elections once again? That's the question you have to ask, and that's the question that needs to be answered. That America, Russia, China, England, France, Germany, you guys all know who the problem is. This situation in Iran needs to be dealt with quickly so they can have elections in Israel and they can vote Netanyahu out. Guys, other than that, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Please make sure you hit me up on Twitter at DTOM Podcast 1776. Make sure you follow the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to this on. Make sure you share this with your friends. Check us out on the other social media. Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and the Ticker Talker. Don't forget the website, DontTreadonMerica.com. Email me, DonQ at DontTreadonMerica.com. Have a great day. See ya.